The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello, and welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
There he is. We're still working out the bugs. I hope you all like our new set. So it seems a little bit classier, but that's the way it is. We've got no guest today again. There's so many things going on in the city of Fall River. We really don't want to have a guest here and have everybody thinking about about what's going on in this city. Last night was the first hearing of the Board of Elections on the recall petition, and it was televised. I believe it's on government access. I can tell you it was quite the experience. We saw the mayor texting through most of the meeting rather than paying attention, so I guess he figures his lawyer's going to do all the work, and he's just going to, I don't know whether he was playing Crush or whatever that game is, but he was texting, and I believe there are pictures out there. You know, and I guess they're trying to fashion some kind of conspiracy theory that this was a big conspiracy, and they want everything thrown out, and they made these allegations like that I don't believe will hold up in court. And we will see. We will fight. But I will say there is a conspiracy. And that conspiracy is a conspiracy of the people to take back government. So if you consider that a conspiracy, Mr. Mayor, and your attorneys, well, we are guilty of a conspiracy. But besides that, everybody that worked on this worked hard, worked diligently, and we did what we had to do to get the signatures, and we did. And I think it's appalling that we're going to do this dog and pony show rather than just put it to the voters. And this is what it's about. It's about put it to the voters. And had you just said, let's do this, we could have done it at no cost. And that's a travesty as far as I'm concerned. And you worry about the money for the election, and that's absurd, because I have a few other new issues to bring up today, little side issues, but it's about money. We are investigating a story at this time that there was a glass. Remember the glass door that cost $9,000? Well, I have been told that they had a lot of windows replaced at the City Hall because the Corporation Council didn't think they all had the same clarity. There was nothing wrong with the glass. I guess they forgot that they could maybe hire a window washer. I don't know. But the fact is that there's, the contract went, we believe, to Global Glass, but we're going to investigate this story, see how much it costs for multiple panes of glass in the City Hall. And I believe there were and ironically enough, those panes were restricted to two places, the mayor's office and the law department.
Right where the pain should be.
Right where the biggest pain in the citizens is. So that's the thing. So we're investigating that story. We've got it from a fairly reliable source. But again, this was a no-bid issue, I believe. Nobody knows what's going on. And again, we have a question of, they're always complaining about money when it's about a citizen's election, but they seem to throw money around like they print it on the 6th floor. CJ?
They must go by my, my favorite phrase is, when they ask, what do you want? A 100-pound bag of 50s or a 50-pound bag of 100s? Either or, I'll be more than happy to accept it. It was very interesting that at that meeting last night, because all the reported, I can't say it, but all the reported mobsters were present. And it was very interesting because Mr. Andrew Marzella Faria, or whatever his name is, did indeed lose his contract with the City of Fall River Community Development Agency for a rather interesting reason. Besides his shenanigans, which we do expect, he lost his contract with the city because it is federal funds. That's what CDA money is. It comes from the federal government. And he failed to pay his income taxes. And because he failed to pay his income taxes, and he has a lien on his property, he had to lose his contract. The CDA felt that they weren't going to tarnish their reputation or hire people who can't pay their taxes, which I find very interesting that once again the IRS takes down another mobster. But there were a lot of people there that just were not cooperating, and they're always saying the recall people are not cooperative. And behind the recallers council was an area where there were chairs, and it was filled with the mayor's supporters. They were wearing Team Flanagan shirts, and the biggest of all was the mayor's mother, and I believe his brother. And when it was suggested that they may have to move because the objectors, which are the original 10 signers of the petition, it's actually 12, but the original signers of the petition needed to gain access to their council, we were actually threatened with, if they try to remove us, we're going to cause a riot. I mean, but that's what they say the recallers always do. So it's just rather interesting to see. So when I approached Attorney Howiak about it, he says, well, there's really nothing we can do, just get here early. I said, some people can't get here early. People do have jobs. But point one to the mayor, he called out on his supporters to come out and be very clear in being in the atrium of the city council chamber to fill it up so that nobody had a place to sit, which is really what happened. But I've got to also say to the mayor, -1, so you're basically back to fail again 0, because the AHA event was going on in the city government center last night. The mayor knew this, the election board knew this, everyone knew this. They could have used an auditorium at a school, they could have done any of that, but they chose the atrium, and that's okay. Except for the fact that there were children and family members there to enjoy the night and to have an arts festival that they couldn't enjoy or have appropriately because of this hearing. And again, this isn't something that the recallers wanted, this hearing. This was something the mayor demanded, because I am not going to quit. I have never lied. Pay as you throw, Mr. Mayor, pay as you throw.
Well, first of all, on that subject, let me commend retired Judge Belford. She really controlled that meeting very well. There were a couple of times where people were making a little bit of noise, and she was very, very quick to censure them, and she maintained order and decorum in that room very well. You can tell that she has vast experience being a judge. So that was a good thing, because I really believe that it could have gotten out of hand very quickly and deteriorated. Because as I was sitting alongside the attorney, and I heard a female, and you're saying it may have been the mayor's mother. I don't know if it was his mother, but basically say, I'm not going to move, and you're not going to get me out of this chair. And it's ironic, because they don't realize that they're irrelevant. What's relevant here is the legal aspect, and what's going on with the lawyers and with the Board of Elections. That's what's relevant here. Pink shirts, purple shirts, any kind of shirt, that's not going to influence the board. I don't know why the mayor felt that. And obviously the mayor was disinterested, and he knew that. Maybe the rest of the people that went there to support him should be upset by the fact that he spent most of his time texting.
Isn't that his usual occupation, though?
Yeah.
It's not mayor, it's text, right?
Yeah, he texts. He's texts everywhere, and apparently the Corporation Council, who we have pictures of receiving the text. I don't know if they, you know, I guess I can't allegedly receiving the text, but she was texting. Maybe it was just coincidental at the time, but they spent most of the time, and she's done that in front of the city council. And I've had a few city councilors that told me they are not real happy with the fact that, you know, she has a tendency to, you know, in the middle of a testimony where she's there to be there for the city council, that she's texting. But it shows their total disregard. They feel they're above the law. They feel that they have enough money and enough power that, you know, we are not going to prevail. You know, they are confident to the point of arrogance. And, you know, they feel that, look, you know, you're not going to be able to do anything. And the reality is that, well, you know, we are the people, and this is an attempt to take back the government, and we are going to, you know, we are going to do this and stay with this as long as it takes. We'll be here till the end, and you better get used to it, because this is only the beginning. This is not the end. If you think if the Board of Elections, regardless of which way the Board of Elections rules, this is not over. Because if they rule in our favor, his attorney is going to take it to court. And if for some reason, even though 3 of their 4 objections didn't receive a second, if they make a ruling that's adverse to the recall process going forward, we will go to court too, because we feel that obviously that this is the right of the people. It's a statute that allows the right of the people to have a say in their government. It is something that in our attorney's brief goes back to before the United States was created. It was in the charter of Massachusetts in 1691. There were recall provisions in that charter. So it's something that has historically been a right of the people, since this is a government of the people. So I don't know, you know, why. Well, I do know why. That's a rhetorical question. I apologize. It was a rhetorical question.
But according to Attorney Halpern, we're in Texas. So is this going to be a battle with the OK Corral?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's rather ironic that we're dealing with a statute that says for recalls in the city of Fall River, and we're bringing in all these cases from not even within the state, but some from other states. I'm surprised we don't have a case from the Nuremberg trials or something like that, because the fact is that, look, this is things that actually don't belong in front of the Board of Elections. The reality is the Board of Elections is there to certify signatures, to run elections, and that's what they did. They looked over the petitions, they certified the petitions. They can have objections about those things, and they will on Monday in the evidentiary section. But the fact is, the points that were covered yesterday were points that can only be decided in a court. He's talking about intent of law, interpretation of law, finite interpretations of what the law means, what sections of the law apply. And, you know, the board, even though we have a judge and an attorney on that board, that's not what their job is as part of the Board of Elections. So, you know, the entire process is being convoluted to get away from the simple fact that he's afraid to have an election.
And you know, Chip, it's very interesting to see how these arguments were presented and what actually was being said. You know, people kept questioning, you know, is the attorney for the recallers doing everything he can? And, you know, it was very difficult to get a lot of them to understand that you don't take your hand at poker and lay it out there for everyone to hear right away, or see right away. And these people want everything like happening yesterday, and they just don't understand that that doesn't happen. The other thing is that it's totally contrary to what the mayor has been saying. And you have to ask yourself, who was his communications person? Because this has just been, you know, he says one thing and then his lawyers say another. So, I mean, is the telegraph line broken between the two of them? Do they even communicate? Because it seems to me that there's just way too many differences going on. And, you know, it's not cheap. It's not cheap. I mean, these lawyers are just putting the tap in and draining it for all it's worth, it seems. And I have to ask myself, why? If he wants to move forward and he wants the process to move forward, why is he fighting it at every turn? And why is he calling everybody out?
No, you're right, CJ. I mean, the fact is that the mayor is a walking contradiction. That's what he does. I saw a media excerpt of last night's meeting. I guess he was interviewed after the meeting, and he told everybody how he got 72% of the vote, which isn't accurate, but that's okay. He got a large percentage of the vote, which then flies in the face of the fact that his own lawyer's argument that, we're trying to make him lose his job. Well, if you got 72% of the vote and you keep portraying yourself as this great mayor that everybody loves and everybody wants to see run this city, why don't we just have the election? Why don't we just, I mean, if I was confident that I was going to win the election by a landslide against all comers because I'm that popular, I would say, let's do it. Let's do it. And I'll even, instead of spending $100,000 on a retainer for a criminal lawyer and $75,000 on a retainer for my lawyer on the recall, I'll give you the 60 grand to run the election. I'll pay for it because I know I'm going to kick your butt.
It's very interesting because it's always a convoluted statement, and we have to look at this. There's been a lot of people ask, well, who won last night? No one won. It wasn't a win-loss matter. People were upset because there was no testimony. They said last night there would be no testimony. So, I mean, do we have to put it in big signs and put it in front of the hall? I mean, the situation last night went the route that it needed to go. And both attorneys argued their cases. I think both of them argued them well. While I could see the Attorney Halpern's side and what he was proposing, I couldn't get it to join up with anything. There are attorneys on the Board of Elections. My personal opinion is I don't think any member on the board really should have a problem ruling on this, whether they're an attorney or not. But you've got a judge, you've got an attorney. And it's just a matter of looking like there's no problem. Make it look good. We're not acting here. This isn't a dress rehearsal for the story to come. And the one thing that is true, and no matter what, this mayor is going to go down in history. He is going to go down in history. Win or lose, he's going down in history. He's either going to go down in history as Mayor Gunn, or he's going to go down in history as the first mayor in the history of the Commonwealth to be recalled.
Well, yeah, you're right. And I think, obviously people, they don't spend, well, most of them don't spend their life in court unless they're career criminals or attorneys. And the fact is, I think it was very, very telling that the attorney on the board, of course, the judge was the chair, so she didn't really say a lot. She kind of monitored it a little bit and controlled it. But I think when Attorney Brilliant said that, he studied these objections and he felt that a lot of these things were, questions of law, as I said before. And the fact is, they don't belong in that forum. People don't understand that. And there are going to be people upset in the evidentiary section on Monday because he's going to have people come up, and obviously they're going to have witnesses that are going to try to say that, they didn't sign or they were bullied or badgered into signing. And, unfortunately, that's part of the process. And, we're going to put witnesses forth that are going to say that, look, we made it very clear that what they were signing, they're going to say they were misled. I've even heard an absurd statement that somebody said that they were told that they were signing a petition against the gold toilet in the mayor's in the mayor's bathroom. So,
but the interesting thing about that was Attorney Halpern said something which really irked me, and I know you, Chip, you're an auditory person. But he turned around and he said, we can't confront these people because who is going to turn around and say, yeah, I was the one collecting the signature as I was standing behind the car or as I was intimidating the person? I mean, my question then becomes, and the attorney Rich didn't propose this, but what's to say that your witness, your person who's saying this is telling the truth? Maybe they're a Mayor Flanagan supporter, okay, and they would say anything to, support the mayor. So it's going to be very interesting to see that who's going to be brought in. Now, I know that subpoenas have to be issued according to the board, and they have to sign off on them. But you only got until Monday. So I'm quite sure that Attorney Halpern has already got all those subpoenas sitting in the Board of Elections office, and he's having them served on those people today. But again, this is what intimidates the voting process.
You're right, and obviously there are a lot of people who, there are a lot of people who didn't sign a petition because they're intimidated by the mayor and the retaliatory methods he's used before. We all know that Sean Kadim lost his job because there were issues in and above his performance because. A few months before, he was the messiah of the budget and the messiah of the city. Everybody was, the mayor and everyone else was singing his praise. Then, immediately he gets summarily executed and sent away. And the same thing with the planning director. He made one decision that was contrary to the mayor, and he was fired. So I mean, he has a history of basically it's his way or the highway, and it's intimidating. A lot of city employees said they wanted to sign, but they wouldn't because they didn't want to see their name. We know people who've received calls. They're not going to come forward. Subpoenas, testifying in front of a room full of people with a microphone in front of you is very intimidating to people, especially people who don't do it every day, and most people don't. So, the fact is that this evidentiary hearing is going to be something where everybody's going to be called into question because the fact is that if they're testifying for the mayor's side, they're going to be perceived as friends of the mayor. If they're testifying on the recall side, they're going to be perceived as friends of the recall. So this is why these things have to be ultimately end up in court most of the time. The first three objections definitely will go to court. As far as the signatures are concerned, that may also end up in court. So the people are going to get upset. They're not happy with the process, but litigation is frustrating. I mean, if you watch court cases, there are so many rules and so many, and there's so much. There are so many things that are unique just to the legal system that people get very, very frustrated. You can't just get up and start saying whatever you want to say. They can restrict your answers to yes or no. There are many things they can do. As we people who like all the lawyer jokes call them lawyer tricks. And the fact is that these people are professional arguers. They get paid to make an argument. So if you hire a lawyer to say that your white car was black in court, he will argue the fact that, that car was really black. And he may not win the case, but he will take his money and argue a case that a white car was black. That's what they do. And a lot of people don't realize that the process is what keeps them employed. And that's why for people who are not part of that process, it can be very frustrating.
It's ooh. Wow, look at that.
Oh.
I felt that. It's, I know that a lot of people were upset. People were squawking at each other, and it really was a show of enormous proportion. And I know that the mayor will be going on the air in about half an hour on the radio, speaking about what happened last night. But I think that we need to remember that if you are pro Mayor Flanagan, remember that your actions, what you do, represent the mayor. And if you are pro removing the mayor from office, also remember that your actions represent the movement to recall the mayor. And those are things that need to be taken into consideration. They're calling people leaders on one side or the other. Mr. Mazzarella last night was at the hearing. He actually asked the police for an escort out of the building. I guess he felt intimidated or threatened. I would probably feel a little threatened myself if I had just published the names and addresses of several women who had protective orders in place, restraining orders, because some of them were there last night, and I'm sure they made it very vocal to him that they weren't going to tolerate, any more of that bull. So we have to be very aware of what's happening, and I'm looking forward to Monday's meeting. That's for sure. It's going to be an interesting show, and I'm not exactly sure where it's going to go from there. This has been extremely stressful for everyone involved. Except for you, Chip. I think you use your Zen Buddhist powers and you relax. You need to put a show on just to teach people how to do that.
Well, you're right. It is stressful, and maybe Mr. Faria, instead of sitting on the floor at Government Center last night, should have got a part-time job to help pay his taxes. But that's, that's neither, but that's just my opinion. I mean, he should pay his taxes. He wants to talk about government and the effect of government, but he doesn't even support the government by paying taxes. So, he can babble on, and we're going to deal with it. The fact is that regardless of how upset we get, and we all get upset, because everybody at some point in time wants to get up and start screaming expletives and saying that, this is bull and, blah, blah, blah. But it's the way it has to be in that venue. I mean, you've got to play by their rules, and that's it. It's frustrating, but remember, we are going to ultimately win this by sticking together and remembering that the bottom line is that we have taken back government. This is a step toward removing this mayor, and what's important is we all stay together until the job is done and there's a recall election. And then guess what? If they win, we don't have anything to complain about. They can say, see, we were right. And if we're right, we can say, see, we were right. But regardless of that, we've won because we've engaged the people in political debate and involved them in government, and that's a win, always.
Well, I have to agree there, Chip, and it's amazing how fast time goes by here, but it has indeed done that. So thank you for watching Spindle City Straight Talk. We love to see you and hope to see you again next week.
Stay active.